Couple of you have already been to a couple of these, but
Are you gonna stand there?
no, I'm gonna stand everywhere. The important thing, so I'm gonna show you the process that I think works the best for me. When I went to this appointments, what gave me the highest chance of converting, highest chance of converting that listing, even when I wasn't the most qualified or experienced agent in the room. And I think it's very relevant to right now because with the market shifting and the amount of equity we have, we're going to start seeing a lot more listing opportunities coming through pipelines. Especially as interest rates come back down, people start to think, hey, this is my opportunity to sell, right? This is my opportunity to move. So you could be a brand new agent, or you could be me, or you could be Nicole. But if you can control the process, and this is the thing I want to get across to everybody, the process and the preparation is how you get into the appointments. It's not what you say. It's not some sales script. It's not some like magic bullet, right? It's literally the person that prepares the most and the person that wins the likability contest at the end of the day is the one that gets listings. So to win the likability contest, number one, you have to be qualified, you have to be trusted, you have to be professional. What a lot of people do out there is they just, because they're the experienced agent, right? Let's say you're going up against somebody who's been doing this for 30 years. They're running around town, they're just going to that house. Right? They're sitting in there and they say, hey, I've been doing this for 30 years, I've sold so-and-so amount of homes, and I've done this, I've done that. But at the end of the day, the client doesn't care. The client wants the person who is going to service them to the fullest, and the person they feel like is going to get all of their attention, right? So for me, even being a newer agent, like 2016, 17, 18, whatever it was, I felt like I was able to prepare the best leading up to that appointment, and then focus solely on them on the appointment. Solely on this is the one script I'm going to give. You know, we want to send all of this information ahead of time, which I'm going to get to, because our only goal today, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, is to focus on the only thing that matters, which is your goals and your needs. That's it. I want you to tell me exactly what you're looking for, because as we know, and by the way, as salespeople, that's what we need to get out of the people. We need to get out what is most important, what are their goals, and how can we plug our service and listing process into those. Because not everyone's goal is the highest amount of money. Sometimes it's the quickest sale. Sometimes it's what else do you see? It's commission rate. Sometimes they just want to be the cheap, you know. So everyone's got a different reason for listing their home. The reason that I choose to do it this way is because 90% of the preparation, 90% of the work that I do is before I meet with the people. And the old school way of doing this was the pre-listing packet, right? This is like stack and it's like branded, and you know, Tom Ferry was the first one that came out with it. And you send it to the house, it sits on their doorstep until they open it up and look at it. Now we have technologies that significantly increase our chances of converting through knowledge, through analytics, and through technology. And so one of the things that we use is HighNote. HighNote is a presentation software similar to BombBomb, where, and you know, a lot of you guys use BombBomb, so you understand what I'm about to say. We can send this presentation out to somebody, and I recommend you send it the second you know that you're going on a listing appointment. So like Chelsea sets one for next Tuesday, I'm sending it this afternoon. The reason why is this technology will allow us, can you scroll down a little bit? All of those little things in the listing process. Quick introduction about us, we can tell you how cool we are in this video, rather than waste 15 minutes to do it in person, right? Yeah, so this right here is it's an intro video that you have to plug into BombBomb, so you can introduce yourself, do it through video, you can tell them what to expect, right? Rather than, again, just sending that bland presentation out to them. But the coolest part about this is that you can go and see in real time how long they're looking at each of these portions of your presentation. So just like BombBomb, when Mike sends a video off, you can see when that person opens it and continues to notify, right? The reason that's important is that this has like 18 slides in this. By the way, you guys can completely customize this to your presentation or your liking. But it's going to talk about marketing. It's going to talk about how many homes we sold. It's going to talk about our staff. It's going to talk about how many agents we have. It's going to show them our Zillow reviews. It's gonna do all of that stuff that normally, if you're doing this at the house, it's gonna take you 2, 3, sometimes longer hours. And as you get more productive, you just simply don't. So some of you have been on listing presentations with me. I might reference that in this, but my sole purpose is to win the life of the listing. It's number one. Like, I'm not sitting there telling them how cool I am. I am literally talking 30% of the time, and I'm listening 70% of the time. What is most important to you? Alexa, please, thank you so much for inviting me into your home today. And just give me a quick tour. Where can we sit down and stretch?
Let's go at my kitchen table over here.
Perfect. All right, so you grab your seat, you sit down, and you say, hey, did you guys have the opportunity to look through the marketing presentation I sent you?
Yeah, I did just a little bit there.
Perfect. Do you have any questions with it?
No, not really. Yeah, that was all just kind of helpful. I really liked it. Thank you.
Cool, awesome. Well, we can always address questions later if we have them, but my goal is to send this ahead of time so that we can focus on the number one thing that matters, which is your goals with selling your home. Does that sound good?
Yes, sounds great.
Okay, so that's how you control the process and forecast what we're going to talk about. They already acknowledged things. What happens if they say I didn't see it or I didn't look at it? Someone that's been on listing appointments, if you sent something to them and they don't interact with it,
They're not interested.
or they're not very serious, or they're higher up in the funnel, or they're just in the research phase. Cool thing about this is that I can come in here. If you go to analytics at the top left, we used to do this with paper. All of these slides used to be a piece of paper in the pre-listed packet. But what I love about this is you can literally just kind of scroll down and go away. It has this timeline where it'll tell you, click this tells you when that person opened the presentation, how long they looked at the presentation, the assets or the slides. So it'll tell you how long they spent looking at each slide. So if somebody spent like 7 minutes looking at your CMA or your marketing presentation, they're probably more interested in that than hearing about how many homes you sold or how good your delivery was. Like, same thing applies to, you go down a little bit. In time, spent 2 minutes, 25 seconds checking out 3 or 4 assets. You click on that, please. That's not that long, 225. All right, they looked at our work chart, they looked at meet our staff, they looked at welcome to Pemberton Homes. And this is just, so when you guys send this, I'll say the name of your presentation. The whole reason I bring that up is that if we're going through all of this, like, we used to do this too, like, we sold 182 homes last year, like 14 of them were in Apple Valley, like, and we're like, here's what we're using, this is what we do to market the property, and this is what local is, and this is what virtual tours are. The consumers, like, number one, like, their perception is we all do the same shit, right? And honestly, today it's pretty true. Like, I'll acknowledge that it's pretty true, but there's a significant difference in the quality of the listing leader and the salesperson. Significant difference in the way that we operate, prepare, and our knowledge levels, et cetera, right? So why would we sit there and tell them what Facebook remarketing and technologies and all this other crap is, or tell them how cool our brochures are that are going to sit on their counter that no one's going to look at because they're all going to the web, right? So we're getting all of that. You're catching my drift. We're getting all of this out of the way. How we sell homes, how we market homes, tell them, how cool we are in this, all of our accomplishments, and all of that. And then when you get there, we can focus on that. And that's, Jelena, when somebody will say, well, hey, we're going to get a divorce. We have to move out. He's moving to Florida. We have to have the home sold by September. Or, hey, we're getting married. Or, hey, we're pregnant. Or, hey, we just want to move into a bigger home. Or we have a ton of equity. Or to capitalize that, buy an investment. Or whatever it is, when we find out what that goal is through asking the right questions, we're going to get down to exactly how we can help. That makes sense? So I just see so many people wasting time. I see so many people spending hours in a house. Like Steve used to spend 2.5 hours. He can't measure the house. Like, we're not doing that anymore. We just lease grab and go in there and do the 3D tour, right? But you can't skip over the things that you're gonna do to sell a house either. So you go back to the presentation. And when I say you can customize this, you come up here, you can change this tile, you can change this, add an opening line. Quite a quick introduction. Hopefully this works.
I think it's,
You do like.
Yeah.
All right,
I think
that's-
it's maybe trying to do it from,
Yeah, that's me
within.
saying, hey Gino, it's Parker, thank you so much for confirming our 2 o'clock appointment next Tuesday. I like to forecast expectations, so you know exactly what to expect. Here is a presentation of all the things we do to market your home. This is in the video, right? We're gonna talk about marketing, we're gonna talk about strategy, we're gonna talk about what's going on in your neighborhood. We're gonna show you even how we video homes. Take a minute, look at this presentation, and when I get to your home, let's focus on the number one thing that matters. which is your homes. You'll notice, you guys, people are in here looking at the same for like hours. It's freaky. Like they'll be in here, they'll view the, you go down this. Go down to the, so let me just give you a quick tour of this stuff. So one very slow reviews.
I'm sorry.
Get to know me. Is where we get it all out, the ego and all that. Right? And the thing is like, if you prepare properly and you show them that you're qualified, you can walk into a listing appointment in Ferguson's. I did, actually. Absolutely.
No socks.
Because they, at that point, if they're 100% convinced that you're the best option, they don't care. They know you're the best. Now it's just a matter of getting it signed and controlling that process. And most importantly, backing up your goals. So go down, you put in, just for example, right, you can take this out, you can add it in. We added a knock program so they can research that. That's how we do square footage, what's happening in the market. This is just from Mars website. David Hartman showed us how to do that in that presentation, so review that if you need to. They don't know what all of this is either. Like unless you get a real analytical person that's in real estate, like Jonathan, not here, his listing is like from a owner of a title company, right? Or you get like a lender from us, like you get some weird situation, like you're gonna treat it different, right? Continue to go down. I put a very bland CMA in there. Talk about a raving off market strategy. That's where we're cool again. We talk about operations team. So all of these people, like when they say, Jackson, what's the difference between you and Mark App? Well, for one, I have a team that has 75 agents on it that are immediately guys are looking for buyers. On top of that, we have, let's say, we don't number anymore. We have 16 staff members that are working on his behalf behind the scenes to make sure your listing is a success. You know, and I'm able to have all of these great people because of the success of our team, right? That's where we touch on that, and that is really an important part because the differentiator between you and Mark is that Mark is out there, solo dude, sells 150 homes a year.
Fair.
crushes it. But are you gonna get a call back from him? Are you gonna get an email back? Are you gonna get this or that in a responsible amount of time?
Morning and he has 0 personal life.
There you go. Yeah. So the thing is, hey, look, I acknowledge it. I can't be everywhere. I can't do everything. I'm not the best person in each specific hat that the realtor wears. But we hired specialists in each of those departments to help us with it, to help improve the process for our clients. Even down to like the ISA team. I mean, I'm you know, I'm talking about these guys all the time. First of all, tell them what an ISA is and explain what that actually means. Because no one knows what an ISA means. All right, marketing your property. So I put a video tour in here. How we stage. Let's keep going now. Go to-
I'm sorry.
That's it. Use the best photographers. You do videography. Click this. Click through it. My whole house. This is actually 2 houses, 3 houses ago.
only 6 months.
2020. Yeah. Yeah, so I'll see people watching this and they'll see this. What else do you have to prove to from a marketing perspective? Something cool like that, right? But again, like, are we gonna open our computers or our iPads at their kitchen table and be like, hey, Nicole, watch this 4-minute
I
video?
probably used to do that.
I'm like, gee, you know, like, There's just a better way to do it.
Yeah, like I can tell you, like I did it the old way for many, many years. And I spend half the amount of time in someone's house now that we have high notes. Like,
And that's
basically, I do the same thing, just what Parker said, like, hey, did you have a chance to look through the stuff? Okay, great. Do you have any questions? No? Okay, great. Let's talk about how much your home is actually worth, because that's what they care about.
Yeah, a lot of the reason why people go into listing appointments tentative, anxious, scared. There's two reasons. Number one, they don't feel like they're the most qualified or they're the most prepared. Or two, they really need money. And if you lose, you don't get money, right? So obviously the solution to that is get more appointments, meet more people. And then when you're in a power position, when you truly don't need to take that listing, you don't need to tell them that, but now you can take listings at the right price, at the right commission structure, your way, control the communication, none of this BS or someone's, telling you what to do. Which is very important. You just finish up going down. This. So like pre-listed section, right? We have a file in there for that. Walk through this, talk about the appraisal process, final recommendations, and then just go all the way down.
That's the bottom.
Thanks. And then you can add a video. So what I recommend is preparing properly. So we need to know the price of the home before we go in, but we're not giving them the final price in real time unless you're 100% certain, right? What we're doing is we're showing them that we're the best choice for them, and then we're going to sit down and talk to them about what really matters. After that, we're going to come up with a price together based on your goals. You don't need to move. If somebody, doesn't need to move for 3 or 4 months, you can try it a little higher. If they tell you, hey, we need to move in 30 days, we're going to structure our strategy around that, right? And we're going to explain to them why based on the market. So other than winning the likability contest in the house, we're educating them on the real estate market right now. Real estate lending, all the things that could affect their sale. Like when we went in there, what did we do? I said, dead seriously, this is what is happening in the marketplace. This is why you didn't have success. This is why you will have success if you listen to us and work on it, right? Your client, what are you going to say to that? Yeah, this guy's pretty certain about what he's telling us, right? And what happens? We listen, they sell in 2 days. So by doing all of this, you're proving your worth without actually having to tell them what you're doing. Any questions on that?
Will you share this with us after this as well?
Yeah. Well, you can log into this.
Yes,
Oh.
you can log into this, there's templates available for you that basically is all this, and then you can just go in and customize it.
Perfect.
They need help with stuff.
You also didn't really talk about like the analytics behind this. So when you send this out to them, you see what it is they're looking at and what they're spending the most time on. And that's what's nice about creating your appointment around that too, right? Like depending on what they spent their most time analyzing in this presentation is what you know is important to them and a priority to them. And you can focus your conversation around that while you're there, unless you did touch on that while I was.
A little bit, yeah. But that's what I like too, because if they spend 4 minutes looking at the video and they spend 15 minutes looking at the survey, you know you can go in there prepared with that information. It's like, like knowing the dog's name, the kids' names, or whatever, like having that commonality of like, oh yeah, I went to Alpine High School. Like knowing information before you go on that appointment, like that's why I look at everyone's social profiles. So before you come to the team, like I bet the crap out of everyone that's on the team. And you should do the same thing with sellers and buyers too. The more information you have, the more strategic you can be in your approach. So yeah, I send this out the second it goes out when we're at the house. I swear you guys, the only thing I do is a quick tour, then I ask them, where do you want to sit on the strategies?
So I actually do it a little bit different. I pick the place that I want to sit. So when I walk in the door, I figure out where I want to sit for the appointment, and I say, do you mind if I put my stuff down here? Is that, I don't know.
I've actually had this happen to me where I just took a seat. It was like a lazy boy seat.
Yeah.
And they go, that's where Grandpa died a week ago.
Oh my God.
Okay.
I usually do the kitchen table, I'm not gonna just pop in a lazy boy.
I'm like, well, you know how easy it is, like you go up the stairs to the split level and you got the couches over here, you got the table over there.
Yeah,
I like to give that, I like to offer it to them because it sets them in an environment that's comfortable for them, right? And then you obviously don't sit in grandpa's.
Yeah.
grandpa's
That's right.
seat. Yeah, or the seat that the cat's been shedding in.
Yeah.
Whatever it is, we're peeing in.
So my biggest problem with prepping high note before I go to my first appointment is knowing how to pull comps on a house I've never seen. How do you deal with that?
Well, that's not, I don't,
So I don't.
that's
put-
a, that's a.
No, sending the
That's a
high note
CMA.
before I go the first time.
But I don't put a CMA in high note.
So you are just doing an introductory high
It's
note
just
and then you
marketing.
follow up?
Yeah, what I would say is,
Yeah.
I've put together some comparables of recent sales in the neighborhood. Obviously, these homes are all gonna be different, but these are the averages of price per square foot, size, and, you know, location or whatever.
Okay.
And then you can put a heat map in there from like, you know, like page 32 of the CMA or whatever. Copy that as a PDF and throw it right underneath it so they can see where the neighborhood is.
Okay.
That's what I would do. But that's not a high note problem, that's a CMA problem. And I would just prep them by saying,
Well, once
You can
I've
even-
seen the house, I feel much more confident. It's seeing the previous listing and using that. And I know you can ask what updates have you done, but realistically, they could go, oh, we put in a beautiful kitchen. You could get there and it's like, okay, we disagree on what's beautiful. So, yeah, okay.
Steve was over at my house, last night. He brought this up. This is just funny, but he brought this old newspaper article, all the homes he sold, and it was in the back of the Star Tribune. And it was from 1983, and it had a little tidbit on the bottom right that said, this year's preferred color of cabinets, it was like dark green, and then preferred color of consumer appliances, walnut. I'm like, oh my gosh, like, can you imagine that? Kind of going off what you said, like, that's gonna change, right? Unless you're going in a time they got pink cabinets, though, like, we're using that to our advantage in pricing. for the most part.
And I've also been into appointments and I've flat out said, I came here with a price in mind, but your house is either better or worse than I had anticipated. And so I'm going to have to pivot and shift on these numbers. The other interesting thing is I feel like, to your point about CMAs, is right now with the interest rates, even comparables that you were using, you would typically use from 30, 60, 90 days aren't necessarily going to be an accurate depiction of where you need to be pricing because you have to price differently now that the interest rates are up. So that makes it a little bit unique. It's all about having that conversation with them though. Go ahead.
Like, say you walk into a house and there's like a whole bunch of stuff. How are you explaining that stuff? Is that based on like what they tell you, like they want like highest price, you're like, okay, well, we paint the walls and do all
Speed
this.
is first.
Yes, like you might walk into some, and you'll certainly walk into some, they're like, we don't wanna touch anything, we just wanna sell it. There's way too much work here, we're not decluttering, we're not doing that. It's like, all right, well, we have a couple of prices. Right? And you're probably gonna get this because of this. Most people, probably 75, 80% of them are gonna say, I want the most amount of money with the most amount of certainty possible. So our main focus there has to be on how are we gonna get the best price? It's not by pricing at 5% above the market, as we know, and we give examples of that. It's by pricing it correctly and driving traffic into the house and selling it the first week, so that we're not doing price adjustments. But again, you guys are gonna say this all the time, forecast that expectation. Like Brandon, hey, you know, my job is to lead you down a path to help you reach your goals. If you choose to list your house at a different price, then I recommend. I can't control that. I can't control what happens. I can control what my professional opinion and data shows. So if you guys choose to list at 400 and it's worth 375, you may expect in the first week you're gonna get a couple showings. But after that first week, you're gonna see showings drop pretty considerably. And what that means is that we are overpriced compared to the other homes on the market. Right? Whatever. So we need to talk about it. But, that way, 2 weeks down the road, now we're having this conversation about price adjustments. We already have, it, right? It's not a, hey, we're panicking, the market's shifting, we gotta lower the price. No, we already talked about it, right? Because that was part of the strategy. So I think too, in this marketplace, the shift that we're experiencing, pricing is so important, so important. And at no fault to anybody that's been in the business the last 2 years, but we put a house in the market, it would just sell. Like, it would sell for ridiculous amounts, right? Now, we've got sellers sending us emails at midnight saying, Jelena, why isn't our house sold? Right?
Or why do you have my house sold?
Jelena, like, well, I've been involved in this whole process and I've seen what you're doing, and you're doing 110%.
Yeah.
Right? But the sellers, it's unrealistic. They come back to you and say, they actually told Jelena they wanted her to do a virtual open house. I'm like,
What?
is it COVID again?
But
Like,
it's a virtual.
first of all, if we're gonna do a virtual open house, why not just hold it open?
Right.
Like, let's invite people in and then let's go live on
We
Facebook.
are doing that, yeah, thanks to you.
Yeah, I mean, like, to me, that's just like dumb, right? If we're gonna be there in the house, let's invite people in to see it. Let's market it to the best of our abilities, and then let's go live on Facebook and still do virtual. But that's an example of, number one, a seller who is reading a lot of shit online.
Yeah.
Right? They don't really know what's going on in the micro market. They're reading a lot of national stuff. Virtual open house, so that's another way to get eyeballs, right? And guess what? The eyeballs are on your pictures on Zillow. When everyone's scrolling, and if they're not scheduling an appointment at your house, they're seeing the competition. The competition is out, it's beating you first online. So, and I talk about that too. You have to win you have to win the almost pretty contest, but like the beauty contest, yeah. You have to be number one online, because what are we doing if we see a home that is better on the next click? We're gonna go see that house.
I mean, I'm still seeing cell phone pictures and dark rooms and.
On like $800,000
Right.
listings. I'm like, you gotta be kidding.
Well,
me.
to that point,
One I saw yesterday was a listing that was owned by the agent.
Yeah.
Like, are you kidding me?
I think to your point of like, last couple years, homes just sold, right? A lockbox, a sign on Zillow, but not only are the photos important, but if a lot of you haven't been using stagers in the last couple years because they weren't necessary, now's the time to start bringing them back into the scene and really getting that house prepared and being the winner of the beauty pageant.
100%.
And that's back to Jackson too, what you said, sorry, Jelena, but I've also leaned on my stager a lot to help with those difficult conversations of things like needs to be painted, or hey, it smells like cat pee in here. Cause the stager is kind of like a third party that they take the heat for it, and then they don't really talk to the stager again. So like my stager will take a lot of that heat and tell the seller things that some of those more difficult conversations. So if you haven't been using stagers in the last couple of years, I would definitely recommend bringing that back into your portfolio of things.
And I have stager information in my high note. It's just part of the process. You offer a
Yep.
staging consultation. I pay for the staging consultation.
What are they done?
$300, $250, $300, whatever.
There's one that'll do it virtually.
Yeah.
It was $150.
Yep, that's who I use.
And
She
she's
does
great.
it all virtually, and you were hesitant to use her because it was virtual.
Well,
Is
it
that
makes
what
sense
the
for my
advisor
listing
said?
because my sellers are out of state right now too, so.
But yeah, she charges 150 and she's really good. Not to get
Yeah,
tough topic.
so that way,
I would want the
you're not
in-person
that
because
bad.
of, like, I have a hard time telling somebody their house smells like shit.
Yeah.
So I would want that person in for the conversation, suck at that, yeah.
Yeah, so on
This
P,
particular home, I was
Smells a
afraid
little
about
musty.
that.
in there. What's that smell?
Yeah.
Right.
Why do I say it's weird like that?
on PhD Agent Resources, there's a whole tab on listings
I
and
don't think
Michelle's.
that this one was in there.
Okay, well then we will add that.
But there's a whole tab with all sorts of resources. Michelle put together a pretty lengthy description of different services and stuff and different options, so. Take a look. And to your point, yeah, I mean, if there's a smell that you don't want to confront, maybe the virtual person isn't the right way to go with, but it's a cheaper option and I think that they're equally as effective. Jelena, were you gonna say
I
something?
was just gonna say, like, with this one client I have right now, that's a brand political, and you can tell them all day long what the market is doing. What has been most helpful is actually pulling the sheets, right, from,
Mar?
yeah, from our, to be able to show them. So now it's kind of removing the emotional element. It's not me just telling them why their house is selling, or we want to have a backup offer. They can actually see the data. I'm sending that. Yeah.
Well, another thing I've done is like, why isn't my house selling? Okay, so pull what's been listed and what's sold in the last 2 weeks. Look, all these homes have come on while your home has been on the market. They have listed and sold and you're still sitting here, like, your price too high, right? Like, or your paint color is obnoxious, or whatever, like. And they say, well, it's just paint, somebody's gonna come in and repaint anyways, it doesn't matter, like, neutral. Market
More than
ready,
ever
like,
right now.
Whatever, it matters more than ever, yeah.
So, back to, like, on the appointment, what are you doing when you're seeing a kitchen manager, right? Anybody can ask the right questions. Doesn't matter how many homes you sold in your life. Everybody can care just a little bit more. When you dig into why somebody is doing something, you find out really what's most important to them. Not only are you gaining trust and rapport, but you're getting armed with information years later. Right? You told me, Jelena, we met a month ago, that you guys had to sell because of, right? Price strategy we came up with because of this. Right? You can go back to those retroactively and say, we did these things because of your goals. Let's not stray away from the plan. Let's continue on ours. Right? Or like, Jelena, thank you so much for inviting me to your home. First thing I always ask, everyone's situation is different. What are your goals in selling your home?
Well, right now, we're just running out of space and I have to find something bigger, but I'm not really seeing anything that's gonna work for my family.
Favorite line? Tell me a little bit more about that.
The
Why-
grit line.
Yeah. Well, tell me a little bit more. Why are you running out of space?
Well, I've got kids who have their teacher stuff. There's 8 people living in our house right now and so I just have to expand the space I'm living in and move into something.
Say something like, I totally understand that too. I have kids. Believe it or not, I've moved 5 times in the last 6 years because of those reasons. So I get it, 100%. My wife made me sign a contract that we won't move again. It's like, whatever, like 4 maybe more, right? And I'm just literally just coming up with that right as well, right? But it's because I asked that question. Tell me a little bit more. So tell me about your kids. What ages are they?
My girls are 17, 15, and 14. My boys are 12, 9, 7. And my boys don't like to pick up after themselves, and my teenage daughters lock themselves in their rooms, and I really want privacy right now. I don't have the space.
Totally understand that. So when we go out and look for your next home, assuming the position, right? Are you looking for 5 bedrooms, 6 bedrooms, or more?
Bare minimum 5 bedrooms. My boys are in enough that we could share right now. And if I found a house that had one of those bedrooms was bigger than average, I could probably definitely 3 boys into one. But I definitely need to separate my girls.
Okay, perfect. Well, we're definitely keep that in mind. We're gonna go back to the home sale. So you guys have obviously seen the market recently. Have you been watching the news? Have you been looking at social media? Have you been researching the market up until this appointment today between the 2 of us?
Well, I see a lot of articles.
Judging their education level, right? Sorry.
I see a lot of articles on Facebook when I'm just scrolling through social media, and I'm kind of concerned because it seems like everybody wants to say we're like back to 2000 right now, and I don't really know what to make of it because it seems like houses are still selling in my neighborhood, maybe not as fast as they were before. But what does that mean for our house? I'm curious how much some people are getting.
Yeah, that's a great question. And what I find working with all my clients is a lot of people watch the news 3 months online, right? It's natural, especially at nighttime. But the thing is that what's happening in Los Angeles or Miami is different than what's happening in Apple Valley. So it's certainly different in Apple Valley than it is in Brooklyn Park. Brooklyn Park is different than Champlain. So what I choose to do is I look at the microeconomics of what your marketplace is doing. In fact, I look at the economics of your neighborhood because the neighborhood data is what's going to show us where that house is going to sell, how quickly we're going to sell it, and how we should strategize. Right? We just asserted the fact that we are able to offer that micro level, right? We don't listen to what's up here, and I'm going to give it to you, and it's my job to educate you on what's going on in your market. That is how you take control of the situation. That's how you become the advisor. This is what I'm going to give you. What am I doing with this? I'm literally forecasting the expectation. We're not going to look at what's up here. We're going to look at what's down here. It's the same thing with buyers when you say, I'm not focused on the big number, the sales price. I'm focused on the middle number, which is your monthly payment that your family's going to be making for the next 30 years. If we can marry, or if we can match your payment to your ideal home, we agree that's gonna be a great fit. Right, you just forecast that, so now when you find that home for them and you match that price, they know that that's supposed to be that, right? Anyway, that's besides the point, but what I started doing, and I learned this a lot too through just interviewing people, right? Like I've interviewed hundreds of people now in the last couple of years, and the word why comes off as very accusatory, it comes off very, very direct. I try to ask every question without saying why. Why do you need to sell? Well, we actually don't need to sell. We want to sell, right? What does this sale do for your family? Boom, what did we just do? We just made it personal. What does it do for your family, Julian? 6 kids? Crazy. Like, I know you guys are busting at the seams, so just tell me, what does this move in the sale mean for your family?
Look, for me, a lot was fighting with my teenage daughters, which was too stressful. It would be great to have some more space too, where we have some parents to play or watch the movies. Space to get a little free, so it would significantly improve the overall lifestyle of the entire family.
Ideally, how quickly do you want to move?
Well, we'd like to move as soon as we find the right place. We have a lot of equity in our house because we bought it at the right time, and I know that, we can cash that out. We're willing to make updates in our house. I guess we'll take your advice.
Oh, of course. What she just gave me though was so much information. Number one, wants to find the right home before she sells. So why in the world would we rush in there and try to get this paper signed right away and force them on the market? Yeah, it's not like, this is another opportunity to continue to nurture them, continue to care about them, continue to go that extra mile, because when they don't feel that you have that sales breath, they're gonna feel like, number one, you're obviously the right choice for them. They're comfortable with you. You're gonna get the right details. It's gonna make those conversations easier. But the next person they talk to, they're gonna say, this Joanna person, like, we hired Joanna. She did a fantastic job. And one of the things we like most about her is how much she really cared about this. That's what it's all about. That's how you get the referral. It's not be transactional, put it on the market, sell it, move on, and don't talk to them again. They're gonna remember you for that, right? So that's why we're asking these questions. Furthermore, like, all right, so actually, let me go back. What you just told me is you have a lot of equity in your house. What does that mean? Well, we might be able to get an equity line or a HELOC. So if that perfect house pops up, now I can educate you on the strategy behind using that equity that you just volunteered to me, by the way, to make that move into the next house, while also preparing your house the best possible way and maximize the amount of equity. Right? So dig me in, if you guys are catching what I'm talking about, dig me into why, like, what does it do for that family? Right? You'll notice people like start crying. They get emotional. Like I mean, more and more of this you go on, like it's, hey, we can't stand looking at that bedroom anymore because, we miss our daughter who's away at college. We need to downsize. Like, there's just all sorts of things when it comes to people, right? But if you're catching my drift, it's about the questions we're asking. And have we even talked about commission? Have we even talked about marketing? Have we even talked about price? No. Like a lot of times, like we just removed that guard and now we're on the inside. If they feel like Jelena cares more than Mark Apta does, just use Mark as an example. Doesn't matter how many homes he sells.
I had a closing
He's the
with him
dude I always used to
yesterday.
go against. Yeah, he was like my main competition.
What's his name?
Just for a side note, he's at 4%. So
Yeah.
if you want to know how to take that down, I can tell you how to take that down. They kept running it. But that's the thing. That's how somebody with no experience wins this game. It's Gary or the next person. And if you caught my drift, I only ask questions that I listen. And they will just volley up information to you that you can use in your strategy, right? But the reason we're able to do that is back to our preparation. Already sent all this. So if I'm telling you how Biloco retargets to Facebook pixels, and we're going to be retargeting carousel ads on the appointment, we're never getting deeper than that. We're never figuring out, what really is important. And I lose. And at the end of it, they're like, like seriously, you're there for 3 hours. Like,
Right.
have you ever been sold like vacuums by door salesman?
No.
Kirby.
Like 5 minutes in, I'm like, we gotta get this guy out of box. Because he didn't win the likability contest, number one. I also, if you remember Matt, when we lived together, and we had the vacuum guy come over to the house? Yeah. Yeah, we lived together in like 2012 or something like that. This guy, 6 dudes living in this house. It's crazy.
Need more than one vacuum.
Oh, for sure, yeah. The whole basement flooded one summer. And 5 guys, and so he sits down on the floor, pulls out his vacuum and tells us how cool his vacuum is. And like, an hour and a half into it, like, good, we're not buying your vacuum, we just wanted to see your system. Oh, okay, packs up, goes to the next door. Like, he didn't read the room properly, right? And that's, you're not catching me in there, sitting at home for
Tell
2
me what
hours.
this vacuum would do for your family.
Some of this bad. Oh, wait, can you, you're probably familiar with this. Can you write your name down, please? Oh, it looks like you need a pen. Like, throw dirt. We gotta clean that up. So, yeah, I mean, the appointment itself is really important. It's about connecting. It's not about price. You're not gonna lose a listing over telling someone it's $10,000 more than the other person if you actually don't even care. That makes sense. Shut up and listen. Like, they're gonna literally give you everything. Do this all the time and Asian recruiting too. But you guys don't know that, but like, I'm asking those questions about what you like to do, like previous brokerage, and then finding ways that if everything else to plug those gaps, proving it to you that you can plug those gaps. Same thing, same sales strategy as listing a house or what kind of buyer. Any questions of that? Okay, so before we leave the house, we're gonna reference this again. You guys, I sent you something, I sent this presentation out a couple days ago. I want you to look at it again after we talk. And I'm gonna call you tomorrow or the next day. Set the appointment. We're gonna talk about how to get the most amount of money and how to price it, right? Because they've already decided they're hired. You're not gonna argue about that, right? A lot of times, if you do it the right way, exactly like I talked about today, they won't even ask you what the commission is. I've sent so many listing agreements over with just, like, we didn't even talk about price. We talked about the net sheet, but we didn't talk about, will you cut your commission for 6.5 to 6, 5? Right? And if they come up at the end and they're like, hey, Alexa, you know, we're at those in here. He said he'd do it for 4.5. He do 4.5. That's crazy. He's barely gonna make the money. But what I would add, first of all, I don't want to do a lot of talking. What would you say in that situation? If it's after the fact, what we're gonna do is we're gonna go back to their goals. You know, what concerns me about that is you guys listed your goals as X, Y, Z. You wanted the highest price for the home, with the most certainty, and you want to make things as easy as possible, correct? Yes. At 4.5%, not only do we have to incentivize the other agent who's showing your home, which by the way, agents work on full commission. If they don't get, that average agent in America sells 4 homes, so if they don't get that commission, that's 1/4 of their income. How motivated they're going to be to put to the house. But we're not going to be able to do all of these great things that we talked about and get the most amount of money. Or you just say, like, will you negotiate your commission? No. Any other questions? No, like, a lot of times people just want to ask.
Yeah.
Like, it's just like ingrained in people that like, you just have to ask for the discount. You shut it down. You're like, no.
I can't negotiate for myself, that's why I would
Yeah.
negotiate.
And also just breaking it down. I mean, they think the difference between a 4% and a 6% commission is so huge, but reality, it might only break down to like $1,500. Is $1,500 worth all of these things that you just explained to me? It makes your move so important. $1,500 over getting the kids in their own bedroom.
Yeah, for sure. You know, CCAS, this is why I'm concerned for you. That concerns me. Right? Choosing the words you say is all. That's the whole game. I mean, it's like 100% of this. That's why we should all be investing time and energy into learning how to speak into, you know, NLP, which is neuro linguistic programming, things that you can put yourself ahead of everyone else. And then you just become like a walking robot. It's like I made a post the other day with my dad. Like, you know, I'm in his car, 5 years old, and negotiating contracts. Like, you programming me listening to him talk to clients for literally 30 years. And then when you're sitting in the office working together, like, it's like a walking script book at this point, right? But it's because you put in the work and you listen. Rather than listen to the radio, turn on an audio book about NLP or talk about sales persuasion, talk about, or go read that book in my office, which is, what's the Barry book?
Too nice for sale.
Too Nice for Sales. Literally, it's boom, it's just big hit after big hit after big hit. It's like aha moments. All right, here's what we're gonna transition to. So we've set this out. You're gonna program your video in here. Number one, what did we just do? We sent them a super cool presentation that no other agent competing against is gonna send. They're gonna walk in there with their printed off black and white CMA and their stupid, 3-ring binder that they got from a resource room. And we're going in there with nothing. We're going in there with our ears. We're inserting a video to start this thing off. How many agents are using video? Surprisingly, still like nobody, right? Especially in the listing process. We do all the things we just talked about. Listing appointment, it's the first thing we do. When we're done, we film the video and we text it to them. Thank you so much for your time. I wanted to regroup and tell you exactly what to expect moving forward. Like we talked about the house, here's what you can expect. Boom, 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 boom. Right? Now you're still leading them, you're still advising them, but you're telling them exactly what to expect. Video. I was on Instagram the other day. I realized like 90% of my feed is video. Like, is that accurate or is that just mine? Because
Oh, it's mostly
Facebook
video.
now, like if you're aware of this, just like Bill Pipe says, right? The words are what, 7%? The way you say it is 35%, and like 73% is your body language and delivery. If somebody can see you deliver that message, far more likely that they're gonna trust you. So hit them with the video right after, and then do what you told them you were gonna do. Don't put it off. Like, don't wait 3 days or 4 days. Don't put it on a notepad. Go home and give them what they wanted, what you told them they're gonna
So you don't bring any paperwork?
do.
to
Always
start?
bring paperwork.
So always bring paperwork, and just the licensing presentation folder.
I might bring a blank net sheet too, in case we want to run numbers live,
Okay.
stuff like that, but yeah, I don't bring much more than a listing.
I use my computer for a net sheet. I just, I typically know what they owe based on our conversation when I set the appointment.
Yep.
So I'll put together like 3 scenarios on a net sheet on my computer, and then sometimes we're like talking so much, I was like, at the end, I'm like, well, yeah, do you actually want to see what you'll net out of the sale? And we'll be like, oh, yeah, I guess so. And then we go through the net sheet, and they're like, yeah, that's fine. Like, Parker said commission and their net sales price sometimes ends up just to be like not an issue.
Right.
Like,
It's not their biggest thing.
yeah.
Can I jump in? Hey guys, it's Jen. Can I jump in on the net sheet thing? I do the same and I bring a net sheet with, lowest, median, highest. And we have that discussion then so that, for example, like my Faribault buyer seller, we're about to lower the price again. And when he said, well, we never talked about that, I was able to say, oh yeah, we did. Remember here when we talked about it and you signed the sheet, and it was able to take that. His defense immediately came down, because when you're upset, about your home not selling, you don't remember that you already had that conversation, or they don't remember that. So if you can at least go back to it, suddenly they stop being as defensive and go, oh, you did tell me about that. Okay. And so his whole mood has changed since. So that's helpful.
Net sheets are actually a required paperwork. I mean, it is something every agent should have signed, if not at the listing appointment, when you get offers. Like, you are supposed to, if we get audited, you're supposed to be able to prove that you at some point discussed their estimated net. So whether you're doing it at the listing appointment or you're doing it at the time of an offer, sorry, this is my broker brain coming in, but they are a required piece of paperwork for you to have. And I'm with Jen and Nicole. I do mine before I come, and we do the 3 different scenarios.
I use them to explain seller paid closing costs too.
Yeah.
Like, it's a great time to have that conversation. It's a great time to touch on your broker admin fee, like just going through all the fees.
They're not caught off guard.
If you need like an electronic Like I just have mine in an Excel spreadsheet, so if you need a copy of that.
We also, there's EXP
I use
net
the
sheets.
MLS one.
Yeah, there's, there's a,
I like bringing in paper specifically in that folder that we leave with them.
Yeah.
Cause I like to circle, like Jen said, low, medium, high. And we're not picking a price right now. We're just talking about where you can expect the equity to fall. Right, we're doing this after we've assumed this, the sale, the close, right? We're not leading with, hey, thank you so much for today. Here's the numbers. It's awkward discussing that, right? Also, don't put your CMA, full CMA, anything about commission or anything about that in this report. Because if they see something they don't like, they'll just pitch you and you're gone, won't ever have a chance to do that.
I've also touched on this before. I'm completely paperless with my listing appointments now, and I have an iPad where I have everything on there. They sign right on my iPad, and then immediately after I'm done, the Notability that I use, you can literally email them while I'm sitting there. Click on it, hit email, send them copies of all their paperwork. So,
I go in
That's
my
nice.
Appointments, assuming the sale, when I have my transaction all set up, and I'll tell them, I'm gonna email you over copies of all the people, so you know what it looks like, once you have a chance. to make questions, we're ready to sign.
yeah, I mean, and the point of all of this too is there's like several different ways, you know, people do things, and there's not a right or wrong way. Just you've got to find your own
But for
groove
that
or what
same
works
reason,
for
if
you.
you're ready to sign on site, I'm ready to go.
Yeah,
I'm
right.
ready to go.
And that's how I mean,
For the most part, is it, they're more doing like a one step, you're walking into a listing presentation and you're ready to sign there versus every two step. Conversation, follow up with them. What's the most common?
I think everyone, you know, I'm a one-step person, but then there's been times where like, maybe it's never been listed on the MLS before, or maybe it's a super unique property that I'm struggling finding comps. And then I'll tell them up front, I need to come, I need to see your house, and then, you know, do my research and come back. If like, you know, in my own neighborhood, it's a split level, 4-bedroom, 2-bath, I can price those out all day long. You know, I mean, that's pretty easy to do, but when it's a unique property, you sometimes just gotta go out there. So I think that just is house specific.
I also think it's your comfort level with doing a CMA.
Yeah.
Like, I'll be perfectly honest, I don't consider myself a listing agent, which is, I'm sure Parker will like roll his eyes at me right now, but like, it's not a mindset I've gotten myself into. I'm not doing CMAs often enough where I feel like super confident. So I'm oftentimes asking for somebody to take a second look at what I'm doing, get feedback, which I think we should all be doing. One of my favorite lines in a listing appointment is pricing a home is an art. It's not a science. This is something that we're going to work on together using data to help drive that decision for us. And we won't make a final decision until we're ready to hit the market, because it depends on what's on the market on that day too. So I kind of like leave it a little ambiguous, I guess. And I think that's one of the ways that I have success in listing appointments. Not like putting a number down their throat, it's more flexible.
And some people, you know, some agents go to each other on the team. I take a lot of those calls. Hey, can you take a second look at this house for me? And I have no problem sitting down and quickly looking things over too and giving kind of my opinion. Another thing about pricing, and this is, people do this differently too, but I never ask them what they think their house is worth. And that's strategic on my behalf, because when I come there, I'm saying, I didn't want to know what you thought your house was worth, because I wanted it based on data and the information that I provided. Now, I know another agent who's a highly successful agent, she asks them every single time, because she wants to be prepared if she goes in there and her number is $50,000 less than what they were thinking. She wants to be able to be prepared for that conversation. But I turn it from a data standpoint, like your house is worth what it's worth, regardless of what you think it's worth or what you want it to be worth, or, you know, what your neighbors sold for in 2018, like, you know. So again, that's just back to different strategies and different ways people handle things.
And to Crystal's point, if you, like Parker was saying, you know that the person like more important to find the right house before they're ready to sell and they're not ready to sign. You know, there's gonna be a gap of how long time from when you have that first meeting to when they're ready to go on the market, and there could be a shift where that price changes. So I always set the tone where I can tell you, like, today, this is where I see your home price, but that might change. So let's fine tune that number right before we go on the market.
And I also take those conversations of, we want to find our right. And I know you talked about not having sales breath, I think that there's still a tactful way to say it, but I'm also still trying to say, let's get things going, let's get photos done and let's get staging done, because if you find that house, we want to be prepared to move on it and not now have to start at square one and we're a week and a half, 2 weeks out from listing.
Well, and the other thing is like, you have listing appointments right now, and they tell you, well, we don't want to sell until spring. Get them to commit to getting their pictures taken before it snows.
Yeah.
Because even if they don't sign a listing contract, pretty much have them if you have their pictures.
Right.
Right.
Or explain to them how, if the right person walks in at the right price, you can match it on a timeline that works.
Yep.
How that can help reach their goals too. Right? The two phrases that you need to literally nail in listings is, tell me more about that. And can I share why that concerns me? Go back to Angie's and we'll come over to you, but if somebody's 50K apart, like the scenario you guys would say, I'd say, you know, I totally understand. You guys want to get the most out of your house. I do too. Look, I'm a consumer. I sold my house to level the conversation, right? However, I'm sure why that price point is concerning you. Sure, no one's gonna say no. Of course, that's right there. The reason it's concerning to me is because after we just looked at the market, we just learned that homes are on the market for an average of 26 days, whatever the microeconomics. If we price it above, it's gonna push our listing out past a month. Based on the average data that we're seeing in your neighborhood, right? If it pushes out past a month, the buyers in the market that's will look at your real estate as it stands. They're gonna start to wonder why no one wants your house. You wanna be in a situation where people feel that way. So what I suggest, like, again, it's like, what, yeah, of course not, right? Oh, yeah, I love this little market outside. Then use that, but all we did was we used what you told us the goals were. Told you why the pricing above is gonna be concerning and not help you reach the goal. And we did it in a way that made a lot of sense. Right? So what I suggested, Angie, instead of sitting in the market for 30, 40, 50 days and not hitting the goals that you just described to me, we should list it at this, which will put you number 1 or 2 in your neighborhood and will drive traffic into your listing here and get most of our money, which is your goal, right? So those two though, tell me more about that and share why that's concerning. Sure.
Okay, so I actually have questions. The first one is a double around timing. And we talked a little bit about how do we know it's the right time? Because so far I made that mistake, I think 3 times. So always. When I'm out with a Zillow lead, I'll just use myself as an example. When I'm out with a Zillow lead and they say, okay, but I have to sell my house first. And I don't really know what to say. So I said, okay, that's great. You know, let's look at this house and then let's talk about timing for me to come and visit with your house and talk more about that. And I think 3 times I've scared them away doing that. So I don't really know what's the right timing, what are the right words. And then just in general around timing and like when somebody wants to sell a house or needs to sell a house to go into the next one, how do I know how to time that? Like, okay, chicken and the egg, do I find them the new house first or do I get their house on the market first? We answered it a little bit with the amount of equity in the conversation we're having here. So that's one question. And then the other one, so you can decide how to go. The other one is about, okay, this is fabulous. Now I need to understand more about how to find them. I know how to take the Zillow leads on the buyer side. How do I go find those listings? So those are my 2 or 3 questions.
Yeah. So how do you find a listing?
Sure.
It's number of calls, number of conversations, number of appointments, equals number of listings. So work it backwards. How many listings do you want to have? Let's just say 2. Let's say that we know that we have to talk to 20 people in order to get an appointment. For example, right? The better you get, the less you'll have to talk to, by the way. Which means how many phone calls do we need to get 20 people on the phone each day? We ask Gino this, he dials every single day. It's an equation that you just work backwards and it's literally a math problem. So if you want to get 2 listings, make some phone calls. Use Remind, find the people that lived in their homes for 5 years and go knock on their doors or call them. You know, I mean,
Or
obviously,
one step easier than that, going to follow-up us to the pond that's called Fast Home Light and Fast Expert Leads, because that should be all sellers.
Yep.
Or we have multiple absentee owner lists or distressed owner lists. So those are people that we've identified based on various criteria that they are likely to want to sell. Those are already loaded in follow-up boss for you.
So
Yeah,
are
'cause the
not
next question
around
is
a
usually who
recent
do I call?
listing.
Yeah.
How do I make that many calls, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, those people, going back to your first question, I would level there again. Leveling is just it's a sales technique of matching that, right? Yeah, we have a house to sell, right? You know, Sharon, what I find is most of the clients that I work with also have a house to sell, and they want to figure out how to strategize around making that timing work best for the family. Why don't we sit down and we'll talk about for 15 minutes, and I'll lay out a couple different scenarios that may or may not work for your family. How's that sound? Don't like try to sell them ahead of time.
I always say this is a low pressure meeting and an opportunity for me to educate you on what this whole process looks like. It's not a high pressure appointment. I just really like to educate the people that I'm working with so they have full picture of what this process looks like.
Yeah, you have to really, I'm hugely in favor of this. Like, you have to be yourself and you have to do what works for you. And I've been that way since day one. Like, I'll go to, $2 million listing appointment, I'm going to be dressed just like this. That's me, right? I think you should match who you're meeting with. But you have to have your confidence in yourself and do it the way that you think is correct. So Parker's way is not always correct. You might be able to take like bits and pieces of what we talked about. Certainly lead with the presentation. This is killer into the prep process. But want to ask questions in a different manner, in a different way, like you can do that. You just need to be strategic about how you do it.
You talk so much about prepping. Anybody else know the 6 Ps? Prepping, leads, or what is it? Poor planning prevents piss poor performance.
Yep.
6 Ps.
That's what is the one thing that we have total control of? Well, there's 2 things, technically, our mindset and how we prepare for things.
I have something to add to that. If you feel like you scared them away by telling them the proper way to do something, they're probably not a client you want. 1, and 2, you probably didn't actually scare them. They weren't serious. They weren't serious.
I think
You
that
have
is
to
for
be
sure
an
the case with one of them. I
Yeah.
completely agree with that. Yeah.
I
The other two
go
I haven't
in
thought about.
strong. I mean, I don't beat around the bush much. I think I've known that, right? I'm a little direct. So I'll be like, hey, I hear you. And if you need to sell your home first, if you get under contract on a new home, you're going to be forcing yourself and pigeonholing yourself on your old home. The biggest driver for your new home is your old home. We have to do that right, or you're not going to end up happy with the new home. We have to focus on this for your happiness at the end of the day. And I just did that with my $900,000 listing, and they listened to me. They were going to write an offer on something. I said, if you do that, you're going to make choices on your home that you're going to regret later because you're going to be forced to make fast choices and fast moves, and it's unnecessary.
Chris, you literally just said you're not comfortable.
Yeah.
Well, you're
What would it look like
you're
if you were?
comfortable-
I think, right.
But you're comfortable advising other agents on how to list homes.
Right.
Tell me more
Well,
about
they
that.
were, right. I have concerns. I feel super comfortable with them because they're returning to me. So that to me is totally different. It's when I'm in like a cold call listing appointment that's really challenging for me. That's just something I need to learn to be more comfortable with. I know that.
Yeah, I mean, the reality of listing homes, first of all, to get more confident,
Have to do it.
you're gonna think on the cycle. Don't listen to the radio anymore. Like the radio serves you nothing at all. And the less you listen to the radio, the more you realize how ridiculous some of the music is.
Except enjoying life a
Yeah,
little,
but-
Parker.
But in 6 months, though, 6
I like
months
to
of
have a
listening to
little fun.
mindset books, go read something from Napoleon Hill, right, or listen to it. Like, you listen to that for 6 months and you just fix your mindset.
Mhm.
It's like literally like at the tail end of my selling, career was like, if someone didn't hire me, I literally thought they were the dumbest person out there.
Right.
Because I not only did I present them that I was the best for the job, but I have enough confidence in myself to say, yeah, sometimes you're just not going to be a fit. Let's move on to the next one. That's why I always say, I can't remember what I said to you the other day, but you just sold a house. Great, who's next? Like, let's high five and celebrate your sale. But who's next? Because we always have to focus on who's next.
Right. And I think it's good for me to say that though, because I think people look up to me on this team, and it's okay to have insecurities and feel not good enough sometimes. I struggle with that. So just know that
Yeah,
you're not
You want to
alone.
feel more comfortable? Ask more questions.
Right,
It's easy to ask questions, right? And they're gonna literally vomit the answers.
right.
They will. Every every time.
People want to talk about this.
Right.
Yeah.
100%.
Why did they invite me to their home?
Yeah, that's my problem. I want to talk about myself.
Yeah, but hey, look, you're strong in the buy side because you're aggressive, you're assertive, you talk fast, you move fast. And that doesn't apply on the listing side.
Right,
The listing
it's a
side, you have to
different
be calculated, confident, slow, you have to make people feel comfortable, that you talk to them in a different way. Like, and that's where the expert salesperson really comes in, is knowing the difference of how I need to match my personality to this person. Every time, like, and that's why we talk all the time about knowing what disc somebody is. If I know I'm talking to a driver, like myself, they just want to get to the point. They're probably going to transact quickly. And they're just like me. They don't want to bullshit, right? They buy cars online without even test driving. If you're an I, you love to talk. So you probably should spend a little bit more time going deep and understanding somebody, really talking. You talk to the difference between Jess and I. Like, Jess digs so deep into somebody's personal life, like understand them. And I'm like, I just don't get it. It's a difference of personality. S is going to be somebody that's more stable and someone that wants more certainty and just, you know, and then the C is going to be your accountants who literally are making decisions based on that. But as an expert salesperson, knowing those things and then how to match your personality.
And if you're not an expert, High Note can help you figure that out, because based on what they're looking at, it's gonna tell you what they are.
Chelsea, you had a question.
So you and Nicole just touched on it too a little bit, saying like, if you ask people to talk, I feel like when I was trying to like do this past summer, I would sit down at someone's house and we would stare at each other and no words would come out of any of our mouths. And like, they didn't want to tell me why I was there, like they did not want to open up at all. And I was like, all right, well, I'm gonna go now. And I was like, that sucks. Like, so like, what are questions, like when someone's just like, I don't know. Like the I don't know is like the, okay, well, you don't know why I'm here, why am I here?
I want to touch a little bit on that because a lot of that's coming from the type of appointments I know you were going on and how that appointment was scheduled. Yeah, I mean,
A little bit, but still, it's like when you're sitting across from a table from someone, you're like, well, why do you want to sell? If we don't know if we want to or not. Why am I here?
tell me what that looks like.
Right, well, what would
Tell
be
me more about
the,
that.
what would be the
Yeah.
trigger for a yes? Like, tell me what you need to decide between the yes and the no in that situation. They can probably answer that.
Yeah, or what's your hesitation?
If they don't know if they want to sell, then you say, well, what will help you decide? How can I help you make that decision?
You go on a tour of the listing before you sit down. I use that as kind of like my
Yeah.
what their lifestyle is. I
Yeah.
like to know everything. It'll tell you if they have kids, it'll tell you if they're being in your backyard, what kind of landscaping they have. Anything that I can find common ground in.
Right.
So that I can use that as a jumping point. Awkward silences are terrible and I have a tendency to just talk over people at first. But if you can ask a viewpoint question or tie it back to something that's, even if it's something like, tell me what you're back on that, just be silent and give them a chance. People to think about it, maybe they'll start opening up.
or, you know, if they're like, well, we don't know if we want to, well, tell me some of your objections about your current house. What are the things that you dislike in this house? What things are you wanting in your next house? Those open-ended questions to get them, something created them to you be sitting at that kitchen table.
Also validating that reply will help them feel more comfortable with you too, right? So I hear that a lot. How can I help you make that decision? Right?
Yeah, the reality of this is that very few times we're gonna walk in to sign paperwork and walk out. There's gonna be a nurture process to this whole thing, the way that you treat them. And that's probably a one-off, honestly, one or two off, whatever. You know, my theory that 5% of people are just crazy in the first place.
Right.
It's true. Sell 100 homes, and I don't know how many clients who absolutely hate it, try 5. Guaranteed.
And if you don't have any of them, you were the crazy one.
Yes, yes. The step above this, you guys, is we've got
Oh,
5
really?
minutes or so. Let's just say we walked through this whole thing, prepped, great. The appointment went great. You asked the right questions, you got the information, but they're not ready to sell it for 6 months. It could be something for 6 months. This is where some people lose it to the neighborhood agent or to that sign, whatever it is, that robo dialers, an open door, like, we have to really think about how we're nurturing people moving forward too. The person with the biggest database wins this game. They win real estate. The person with the biggest database sells the most common homes. 100% true. It's when you're building, like, let's say you go on that appointment. that's great. Now we have a June sale next year. We also have an off-market opportunity. We might be best buyers. But knowing what to do to get that person ready for the 6 months, I think is crucial. And so what I would be doing is I'd be putting them on at least a weekly value through. What I mean by that is that if I know they're gonna sell, and we had a good connection, every week in follow-up boss, you can literally set a reminder every week. Send them a market update, send them a little video, send them, my database gets, 3-4 videos a month. They get market updates go on, they get all sorts of stuff. What we all fail to do is we fail to continue to follow up past that point, right? So I don't, I just noticed this, she and I talked a lot of sales here. This guy is not ready to sell until what? Spring. And what are you gonna do? You're gonna check in, you're gonna sprinkle some value in there, you're gonna offer your assistance and your help. And at some point, you're gonna have to go there and get science and start prepping. And so,
Very emotional situation. And let me tell me his story and why he's not ready.
Yeah.
And I beat out another agent who said, I came in there, paperwork ready and prices and just wanted to do it right away.
and then, follow us helps us about significantly. You can literally push that little lightning bolt, tells you to follow up next week. And as you check that off your list, now you're in touch with people. Be creative, like you can go send them a video. Hey, it's Parker, sending you this video, I'm not subjecting it. I still catch myself doing it. Hey, I wanted to send you a video, to share with you what's happened in your neighborhood last week. Inventory is up, pendings are down, sales are blah, average sales prices, have a great day because of that performance. Something like that. And I always relate it to another industry, like, used cars, because I'm constantly looking at car lot. If you go in, in 6 months your pieces out, and you're looking at Jeeps, and that salesperson says, oh yeah, let's test drive a Jeep, we love Grand Cherokee, but you can't buy it for 6 months. What's gonna happen in 6 months? You're probably gonna walk into a sales lot again, be a different salesperson, and buy a car. What if that salesperson every week is keeping you updated on price, incentives? Maybe they're giving free tires or upgrades. Yeah, like, dude, my car guy is awesome. Send me deals all the time. Like, think about that experience versus, yeah, we'll just go back to Metropolitan Ford. Let's go to Apple Ford, whatever. The reality is, we're going to all these appointments. We're just not. If you lose them, you're just not making a big enough impact on them to convince them that you're the best fit. That's our job. That is sales 101. You have to convince them and show them that you're the best fit.
Going back to Chelsea and maybe even you a little bit, Crystal, too. Not a lot of people like doing it, but role playing, it helps you become more confident going into whether it's listing appointments, buyer appointments, etc. Partner up, Brandon, Chelsea's new partner. You guys get to role play.
Or alternately, because I think that I hate it. I'm just gonna be the weird person. I hate role playing. I can't force
Right.
me to do it. I would much rather shadow agents, and there are plenty of agents on this team that will let you shadow them.
Why do you hate role play?
I don't know, it's
I hate it
weird.
too. I know
It's
I was
weird.
suggested it, but I
Like,
hate it
you don't
too.
like
I
looking
like,
at someone's eyes and like.
No, that's not it. Look,
Everyone feels
I'm
that.
born for the stage. I love to act, right? No, it's just like the same things. I don't know. I don't get anything out of it. Honestly, it's never done anything.
you feel
for
like you
me.
get more out of the genuine conversations
I
that are
s-
happening.
Yeah, I started my career being an assistant for someone. So I was built in to shadow, right? For 2.5 years. It's where I learned virtually everything. I've shadowed Parker, I've shadowed Nicole, I think I've shadowed up Steve for sure. It's absolutely what I recommend. I mean, you can role play too.
If you have an appointment, that's one of us. So then, like, if you're in one of those situations where you get stuck and you don't know what to say, you have somebody to bail you out.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So you get.
Back to
more
role play,
confident.
like, well, I understand you don't like it, I hate it too.
Right, I mean, everyone
Go-
else could do
Go
it.
on Zoom, turn your camera off in 2 separate rooms on Zoom and do it that way.
Oh,
Or sit back to back. Someone sitting behind me and you're not looking directly at their eyes or whatever.
Yeah.
It's honestly weird. Like
Yeah, I
said,
don't know
did
if
it,
it's that part that
like,
weirds
I
me
just
out.
boom, 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 it's memorized. I've done it so many times. It's like I can just.
Yeah,
react
that's
to
what it
whatever
is.
somebody tells me, I know what they're gonna say.
Is that how you write your objections?
Another good way to do it.
I'm hold on, Jen.
Hang on.
I'm handling the objections with the information that's already given to me. What is most important to them? How do they want to sell their house? What does the sale do for them? They'll give you all that information where if they give you an objection, you just plug that.
So, for example, like if they're saying like, I'm interviewing 3 other people, you know what to say right Hey,
I would
I'm gonna
level.
wait 2 days.
I would level them, I'd say, hey, that's really slow. Selling your home is not, it's a little simple task. I would absolutely interview some people and pick the right person.
Don't be afraid to ask them.
That comes next, but after that, awkward silence. Okay. What is most important? Every agent's different. We all offer different things. We all have different personalities. From my time in selling homes, thousands of homes, I found that single plug, video plug. I found that a lot of people have different reasons and different needs, and each agent's often able to offer something different. Tell me what's most important to you. Okay, tell me more about that. Okay, well, what concerns me about 4% is.
Okay, I think you're saying.
Yeah, last thing though, and we can talk about this in the meeting if you want, but. We have a significant shift in the market, which is going to require us to shift our approach with communication with listers. I know this is a big deal because I'm starting to see people get sellers coming back to it and say, hey, what are you doing to sell my house? Or, hey, when are we going to sell? Or, hey, what's going on here? We have to get around that. What we used to do is a simple Mike Ferry system is the seller promises, right? Again, you hear me all the time talk about setting and forecasting expectations. What is this? This listing promise? Don't get like super dialed into the details of this. But the last thing we want is 10 p.m. and someone's calling you saying, Joanna, what's happening with our listing? I want to control my schedule, right? Here's what you can expect when you work with communication. Communication, I found, is one of the biggest reasons why real estate agents and clients get on different levels. When they have issues, it normally comes to communication. That's really important. So this is what I promised you. You're going to get a weekly call, a weekly email. We're going to update you on the market. Every 2 weeks, we're going to reassess our strategy with your seller. If you'd like to do that quicker, I'd be happy to. Or sooner, I'd be happy to. What you can expect from showings is that within 24 hours, I'm going to proactively reach out to the agents and get feedback on the listings of your home or the showings of your home, so we know how it's reacting to the market. Just go through this thing. I offer a communication guarantee. If you reach out to me, I guarantee that I'll get back to you within 12 hours, maximum. If I don't, I'll take $500 off my commission. Oh, really? Yes, because it's freaking impossible not to respond in 12 hours. Like, to be real, if you're not responding for 12 hours, like you're just out of it.
You're dead.
Or you're dead. Yeah, I don't. Well, 12 hours of working hours.
Right,
Like,
yeah, no, you're like
night
sleeping
doesn't
on the
count.
job.
Yeah. What we're doing though is that we're controlling the communication process and telling them how we're going to work. Again, forecasting expectation. I can't say that enough. I do it with literally my son. I'm like, hey, we're gonna go to the park, we're gonna go to Target, we're gonna do some grocery shopping, and we're gonna get a Happy Meal. Right? He knows the whole time what he's gonna get, right? That's maybe not the greatest example.
I think it's a good example. I like it.
It's important what you're saying.
Yeah. Yeah, otherwise he's gonna throw a fit Target because he wants Happy Meal. Like he knows it's coming after Target, right?
Yeah.
But anyway, so more seriously, like on here we have the honest promises guarantee. We have the pricing strategy guarantee. I will literally, I used to tell people if I don't sell within 5% of my recommended list price, I'll take X off my commission. Depending on the commission, depending on the price, depending on whatever. Because I know if we price it right, we're gonna sell it. Why? Because we know the market. We know the microeconomics of the market because we actually research it and we inform ourselves. We're not gonna wildly outprice a home, right? Read this form, you guys. I think this is something we need to start putting into our presentation. Before you leave that house, Chelsea, hey, I'm thrilled to work together. I'm so happy you picked me as a realtor. But can we go over one more thing? These are the promises from me to you during this relationship that you can count on a weekly basis. I found that 95% of the time when this agent has a problem with clients, there's zero communication. So I wanted to fix that. And I fixed that by my PhD listing promise or whatever. Whatever. Right? Like, no one objection at me about that when you say it up front. Yeah, 100%. And there's things like this where it's a tried and true, but the reason we need to put this into our approach in writing, by the way, is because the market will shift more, pricing will be all over the map. It's going to go up and down. You're going to have listings on the market for 2-3 months. That's normal. That will be normal. It's not going to be normal to some of the agents that just started, but sure as hell is normal for people that worked previous to 2019. So let's get ahead of that rather than letting that client realize, hey, what is she actually doing somewhere else? That makes sense?
Yeah.
Any questions with that? It's my approach is bulletproof because I take control, I assert my education and my dominance, and I tell them exactly how it's gonna go. And then when it goes according to plan, it makes for me. But a lot of people miss a lot of those steps.